This is the updated Honda HRV, and there's now a more affordable hybrid version available. And speaking of more affordable, every single version of the HRV has seen a price cut, and that means better value for you. So is there a sweet spot in this range now? Well, I have an opinion on that, and I'll tell you it in this review. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, ring the bell, and let's get to it. Righto, there are now 3 grades available in the Honda HRV lineup, including a new mid-spec hybrid, and all of them, as I said, have seen price reduction. So the entry-level version, the VIX, now starts at less than $35,000 drive away. That's a national drive away price, and it still gets plenty of standard equipment for that money. That entry-level petrol version comes with things like 18-inch alloy wheels, auto LED headlights. There's also a 9-inch touchscreen infotainment system with sat-nav, wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto that you have to plug in for, DAB digital radio. It's also got keyless entry and start, black fabric trim, and climate control. The newly introduced mid-spec model is the eHEV X. Now, it is $5,000 more than the entry-level petrol, but it doesn't just get you that hybrid powertrain, it also gets you some extra spec, including blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, which really should be standard in the base model car. Lots of other $35,000 cars have that tech as standard, but it also gets you a few other features, including adaptive high beam lights. There's LED front fog lights, you get leatherette and fabric trim. There's heated front seats, 6-speaker sound system. You only get 4 in the base model, and you also get paddle shifters on the steering wheel for the regen braking system. And then there's this one here, which is the eHEV L. It's the top spec version. It's more affordable now as well, $4 grand cheaper than it was when it launched, which is a sizable contribution in terms of making this a better value option. And it's still got plenty of standard spec as well. Things like an electric boot, auto wipers, dual zone climate control, a heated steering wheel, a 6-speaker sound system just like the mid-spec, and also rear air vents with USB ports, which is a bit weird to have them only in the top spec model, and an auto dimming rear vision mirror. So at this price, I think it makes a lot more sense, and it's also available in the hybrid models with this lovely new green color. But what about other options you might want to consider for this kind of money and this size of SUV? Let's talk about them. So if you're thinking hybrid, you're thinking small SUV, and you want something that maybe has a bit more boot space, well, the Hyundai Kona stacks up pretty well. It's also very affordable. There's a bunch of different versions available. You can even get it with an N-line styling pack if you like that look. I don't know if I do, and it's also got a pretty good fuel efficiency factor on its side as well. So it could be a great choice for you, or you might want to go and check out the GWM Haval Jolion hybrid if you're on a strict budget, because I think that for the money, it stacks up decently, but it's not necessarily my favorite thing to drive. Check out the review. The link is in the description and you'll see why. It also has a very small boot, which might rule it out for you. Depends on what your preferences and requirements are. And finally, if you don't care about hybrid, if you just want a really, really good small SUV, I thoroughly recommend you go and check out the Skoda Kamiq. It's available in a few different grades and starts from a low price point, as a 7-year warranty, and it's super duper fuel efficient even without hybrid tech, and a lot more fun to drive than some of the other small SUVs in the segment as well. Tell me what you think. Which one would you pick? Now, if you watched my earlier review of the Honda HRV, you'll know that I think this is kind of the sweet spot in terms of size for a small SUV. About 4.4 meters, or just under, for this model, and it does have only 4 seats, which might be a deal breaker for you, but it is still a pretty practical car in terms of the space in the back. I'm going to show you some stuff in there in a minute. I just want to call out these silly door handles, and at the back, well, you can't really tell that this is the updated or facelifted version. It's very, very similar in styling to the existing model, but let's take a look in the boot. This is the high grade version, so it gets a electric tailgate, and let's have a look at the boot space in here. And the figure on your screen indicates that this is quite a small boot, but it's actually not that bad in terms of the usability. You can fit a small pram in here, some overnight bags, or some shopping quite easily. And it's got some decent features in terms of shopping. Yes, you do have one bag hook on the side. There's also a light on this side and another light on this side, and a little storage tray over here. And in here, that's where you'll find your tyre repair kit. So that gives you an indication that underneath the boot floor, there is no spare tyre because it's a hybrid. Battery packs in under there, and there's a little storage tray underneath this section where you might want to store something. I don't know what you'd store in there, but There's another little storage caddy on that side as well. So I think that it's not too bad in terms of the usability, but if a spare is important to you, it might not be the right car for you. No massive changes to this interior finish, and I'm okay with that because while some of the other SUVs in this class might prioritize having bling and things to make you feel like you're getting a special experience, this car is more about quality and the way that it's been put together and the feel of everything. And look, I have to say, I love the feel of a lot of elements of this cabin. Things like these dials, which have this beautiful tactility to them when you adjust the fan speed or the temperature. And there's also really nice adjusters on these vents over here too. Listen to that. You don't get that in lots of the other cheaper SUVs on the market. Now, it is missing a couple of things. So it's got a partly digital instrument cluster. There's a digital element on this side, and it doesn't have as much configuration to it as some other vehicles in the segment, but I think that it is okay. And also, it does miss out on a wireless phone charger, which seems to me like a miss because everybody has phones these days, and it has wireless Apple CarPlay, which again makes me think that it should have a wireless charger, but instead you have to use either the USB-A or USB-C port to charge up. Now let's talk about this screen. Yes, as I said, wireless Apple CarPlay, you have to plug in for Android Auto. It's pretty quick to react, pretty simple to use, and more generally the screen is very simple to use. You will get used to this one far more easily than lots of the other SUVs in this segment, which prioritize having a massive screen with no controls that are usable, instead of having a very simple layout with very learnable controls, I would say. Yes, there is a home button as well. You've got a volume dial, which is a nice thing to have. And you've got tuning controls there as well if you want to skip through your radio stations, or if you're listening to an album on CarPlay, you can do that too, or a podcast even, you can skip through it. Now, I also want to call out the fact that, yes, I said you do get a little storage tray down there, but it's not a wireless charger, and it's also a bit rattly. And down below, there's another scratchy plastic surface down there, so things will rattle. You've got a rather conventional looking shifter for a new generation hybrid product, and you've also got some controls down here. So you've got a drive mode selector, your hill descent control if you ever need that. There's your electronic park brake and a brake hold system. So if you don't want the car to creep forward when you're in traffic, that's the one you need to press. Oh, and the gear selector has a B mode as well, so you can run the regen braking to its most effect, and you adjust the regen brakes by using the paddle shifters, so you can make them more effective or less effective depending on what your preferences are. Cup holders there, decent sized center console bin, not too big though, and you've also got bottle holders in the doors. There's soft padded sections on the doors for your elbows to rest on. No ambient lighting on this dashboard though, which is a bit disappointing. And you might be thinking, well, this kind of money, I'd want full leather. Well, you don't get it. You get a cloth and leatherette trim. I'm actually okay with it because it looks fantastic. And in terms of the adjustment for the seats, these ones are manual. And on this side, it's manual as well. So, yep, you don't get electronic seat adjustment, which could be something you want to keep in mind. Lots of the other SUVs at this kind of money do offer that kind of tech. But I think that generally, even though it isn't as blingy, it has kind of like an Audi vibe to it. It's very well put together, and it makes you feel like you are driving something that's quality. Right, let's check out the back seat and see if it's a quality space as well. This seat is set for my driving position, and just have a look at how much space I've got. This is a small SUV, remember. I've got enough space to stretch out my legs and be quite comfortable in the back of this car. And in terms of headroom, it's also pretty good. A decent amount of headroom for someone my height. And I think that for families that have big teens, and just two of them, it might be okay. But if you have 3 kids, you're going to struggle with this car because there's only 2 seats in the back. So yes, there is no middle seat. It's just a divider between the seats with a flop down armrest with cup holders, no seatbelt in the middle. So that could be a decision maker for you right there. I would understand that. You've got ISOFIX points in these window seats and top tethers for both as well. But yes, it is a bit limited compared to some of the other vehicles in the segment when it comes to the usability, practicality, and family friendliness. But this one is the high grade version. So it does get the rear air vents, which I think should be standard on all grades. And you've also got USB-C ports. There's a little storage tray down here. You've got decent map pockets with little dividers inside as well, so you can put your device in there. There's also a little bottle holder up here too, and I think that generally this is a really nice backseat experience. And these little lights are great as well, so they're a touch sensitive light. You've got grab handles in the back, but as you can see, the window is a little bit small, and if you are a tall person, just watch your noggin getting in and out. Now, there is some cleverness to these back seats. I just want to show you what I'm talking about. Yes, they are magic seats, and hopefully I can do this one-handed. We'll find out in one sec. So, pull this forward and look at this folding mechanism. So that makes a nice flat space for you to load longer items through if you need to. And you can also flip up the bases of these seats, lock that in place. And yes, you can do it one-handed, which gives you an idea that it's not hard to do. And just look how much extra space you'd have if you were using this as the Honda HR van instead of the HRV. I reckon it's a very, very clever little SUV in that regard, but it is a shame, like I said, that you only get 2 seats that are usable in the back. The entry-level petrol VIX is powered by a 1.5 litre non-turbocharged petrol engine. It's got pretty modest power and torque outputs, but it's a pretty light SUV, and it's mated to a CVT automatic transmission, and it's front-wheel drive. And then there's the hybrid versions, which use a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder hybrid powertrain. And the total outputs are 96 kilowatts and 253 Newton meters. Yes, it can drive in EV mode because it's got 2 electric motors and a battery pack as part of this entire combination. And it has an eCVT transmission as well. So what's it like to drive? Let's go find out. All right, let's go for a drive, shall we? We're driving in normal drive mode, and I do have it in B mode, and that means that the regen braking is at its most assertive level. It won't come to a complete stop, but it will help you replenish your battery as much as possible. So I'm just testing it out right now. There's no traffic around. It'll get down to about walking pace, or brisk walking pace, and 10 k's an hour, and then yes, you'll have to use the physical brake pedal. It does have a nice pedal feel, which is good. Some other vehicles with regen braking built into the system aren't necessarily that joyful in terms of the brake experience, but this one is pretty good. So you might be able to hear the engine. Sounds like it's a bit of a generator right now rather than an engine, and that's because it is acting as a generator to power the electric motors to basically propel this car along, and it will also run in EV driving mode too. It's just dependent on the situation that you're in, and it can also combine the EV and the petrol engine together to try and make as much progress as possible, if that makes sense. So if I put my foot down, you can hear that the engine comes to life, and you've also got battery pack assistance if you need it. Now it's gone into EV mode, and it will run silently when it is in EV mode, and it jumped back out of it. It is very active in the way that it behaves between EV, petrol, hybrid, whatever it is, and it is also quite efficient, but we'll get to that in a sec. Now, I want to call out the fact that this car has a very high seating position. I wish I could sit just a little bit lower, and that's a bit peculiar because it does have manual seat adjustment. Typically with manual seats, you can get yourself a little bit lower than in electric seats, for instance, but yes, I just wish I could sit a little lower. I get it, it's trying to be upright and, you know, sitting up high so you feel like you're in command, but I don't love it. What I do love is the way that it drives, because it has a nice handling characteristic to it, has decent steering that is very, very easy to judge, and I also like the ride. It is a little sharp over some lumps and bumps, particularly if you hit a really sharp edge. You might find that it does tend to make the car feel like it's hit that sharp edge, and other cars might be a little bit softer feeling. But this one, I really like the way that it behaves itself on the road. It does have a very engaging character to it. So if you are the sort of person who thinks of themselves as someone who likes to go for a drive, doesn't just drive to get places, then you might find that this is a pretty enjoyable experience. It's also not too bad in terms of refinement. You will notice that there is some road noise intrusion to contend with. Even at lower speeds, you might notice that, in fact, especially if you drive on rougher surfaced roads. Like this is a pretty smooth surface right now, and yeah, you can still hear a bit of tire roar. Go onto this other road, which is even noisier, and yeah, you can hear that. It does get a little vocal in terms of the tire noise coming into the cabin. But for me, those little things don't detract from the fact that this is one of the more enjoyable small SUVs to drive. I mean, you will have to make up your own mind whether you like the way it drives or not. It is a little firmer feeling than some other cars, but like I said, for me, it's to my tastes. And also, I love the fact that the safety technology is applicable in this car. You've got speed sign recognition and it's not annoying. You've got lane keeping and it's not annoying either. So that's a good testament to this car. The fact that you don't have to muck around turning off safety systems every single time you drive the car will make it far more enjoyable to live with, trust me. Compared to some of those other small SUVs, which are a pain in the ass, this one seems like it's saintly in that regard. Okay, let's talk about fuel efficiency. So the VIX entry-level model, you'll see the official combined cycle figure for it on your screen now. It's still relatively efficient on paper. I haven't driven it, so I can't attest to whether it lives up to that kind of claim, but we are in the hybrid model, and the hybrid versions do have the same official number. You'll see it on your screen now. And look, that is not a massive drop compared to the petrol, especially considering the price premium, but in reality, it is still a very efficient vehicle. You'll see on your screen what I've achieved over a mix of driving over a few days in this car, highway, freeway, urban, and much more. And I think that that is decent. Now, I will say that I have been using this car with the B mode, yes, the regen braking system, in its most assertive level, and driving in normal mode. If you put it in eco and B mode, you might get even better fuel consumption. Now, I'll also put on screen the fuel requirement for this vehicle and the fuel tank capacity, so you can see how far you might be able to get on a tank. And hey, I think that it stacks up pretty good, this car, pretty good. The Honda HRV achieved a 4-star ANCAP safety rating a couple of years ago, which is less than stellar, but it is still good in terms of the usability of the safety technology. It's got autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. There's a lane keeping system. It's got adaptive cruise control, and there's a reversing camera with front and rear parking sensors on all grades. No model comes with a surround view camera, which is a bit of a dud. And also you have to spend up to the hybrid if you want blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alerts. So that might factor into your decision-making process, but it also comes with 6 airbags, dual front, front side, and full-length curtain coverage. No front center in this car either. So is it good enough on safety? You tell me. Honda Australia offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and it also is known to offer some promotional warranty programs up to 8 years. So it might be worth keeping your eye out to see if you can get a really good deal on a longer warranty. And the brand has a cap price servicing plan for $199 per service for the first 5 services, but that's only out to 50,000 K. So your service intervals are 12 months and 10,000 kilometres, but you'll also get 5 years of roadside assist included when you buy a new Honda. Sometimes they promote that to be even longer as well. I was already a fan of the Honda HRV, and these updates with that lower pricing makes this car even more convincing than it already was. Now, I wonder if I would choose the mid-spec or the high-grade version. It's only a couple of extra grand to get into this top-spec one, and I think you're getting plenty of great features for the money, although it is still missing out on a 5th seat, and that could rule it out for you and your family. Tell me what you think about it. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please ring the bell to keep up to date with all of my reviews, and thank you for watching. I'll see you later.